this real quick. Hello. Once you're here, well, why don't you do me a solid? Share this for me real quick. Can you do that? Hey, once you comment, say hello, wave, just share this for me. Would you help me out in that regard? That'll be real, real helpful. Just share this. How are you? How are you? How are you? Incredible. Thank you. Welcome. Now that you're coming in, y'all do me a solid and just comment. Let me know that you're here. Let me know these are not bots. These are not droids that are coming in to harass us. I want to share this, get this off my chest. This has been brewing for almost, well, actually a year today. I want to talk to you real quick. As you can tell, there's some things that are on my chest that I want to get off. But I want you to come on in really quickly and let's get there. All right. Thank you. As you can tell, I'm comfortable. Ain't nobody here but me. How's the audio? How is the audio? Ain't nobody here but me. No frills, no pomp, no circumstance. Ain't no band behind me. I don't even have a team today. This is me talking as a leader, as a man, some degrees of things that have happened to us over the last year. So if you're coming in, again, comment, Love City, where are you? Let me know that you're here. I've been grinding for the most part all day. I want to talk. Some of you have been asking, what is it you're looking at it? A year ago today, our move out was official. Love City Church left the building that we were in. Did not come without some tumult, did not come without some challenge nor issue. But I'm grateful that I finally heard God. Well, I didn't finally hear God. I finally listened to God. All right. We moved out the building a year ago today. Today, at this time last year, my church board was meeting with the board of the building that I had been using. And we determined that we were going to leave. Again, it did not come without some issue. And I'm not going to get into all of that because some people are just here for the gossip. You can create the rumors however you desire to do that. I want to go from here. Can you guys at least hear me? Can y'all hear me? Jump in the chat and let me know that you can hear me, please. Let me know that you guys can hear me. Good afternoon. All right, you can't hear me. All right, here we go. Now that I know y'all can hear, I'm going to work. We have spent, let me give you a little background. So those of you who know Love City Church, who know Love Tabernacle Fellowship International, you have known us in one of two locations over the last almost 30 years. All right. I'm going to give you a little background really quick. Again, I'm not here for the gossip. if you want to talk, we can talk. But we were in a location for almost 30 years. We got there in around April, May of 1997. This was my father's, I think, second go round at planting a church. We had been in Ocean Hill, Brownsville neighborhood a few years prior to. We were there for about a year or so. My father decided to pull back, and he started to be an associate pastor elsewhere. After that, the Lord impressed upon him to start again Love Tabernacle Fellowship International, Love Tabernacle International Fellowship Incorporated, and that happened in April, if I'm not mistaken, of 1996. By the time we hit a year, our anniversary, we had almost been bursting out of the building. It was a storefront. We had been bursting out of the building. Our youth ministry had multiplied just incredibly, and we needed space. It turns out, however, that there was a degree of intimidation by our landlord at the time. And literally one Friday night on the weekend of our church anniversary, the gates of the door, the locks on the gate were changed. We could not get in. My father called the landlord, and the landlord gave his story. My father said, okay, fine. Just allow us to finish this weekend out because it is our church anniversary. If you could meet us on Sunday morning, change the locks, and we will, open the locks for us, and we will have our service there, and we'll start looking for somewhere else to worship, to fellowship. The story that landlord gave, just for understanding, for background, is he said because of the amount of people that were coming in, he felt that he would have to have prayed the devil out every time we left, because there were so many people coming in, so many different people coming in. And this is Pentecostal, quote unquote, Pentecostal church to Pentecostal church. Deliverance was not new to us. We had done deliverance. We were doing deliverance. And for whatever reason, this leader said that was the reason. We had to borrow the living room of one of our members at the time. And at that time, we made a phone call to a bishop friend of ours. He was a pastor at the time in Brownsville. He opened the door, made contact to another pastor who said that they had space. They hadn't really been using it. They had service, but they weren't using it as much. They didn't have as much membership, so on and so forth. Anybody who knows anything about small church business, we worked things out, helped cover the bills, and we moved in, and we started a few days a week. Now it was a phenomenal relationship. The matriarch at the time was just a faithful woman from what I've seen. We began to just fellowship over time, and even after a while she was up in age, we would stay around. I personally would sit around and wait for her, help her get in and help her get out sometimes. And it was a wonderful relationship. Came to know family, so on and so forth. It was never an issue. Over time, again, things happen when there is growth, when there's expansion. People, just like things change. Unfortunately, if you don't care for where you are, erosion takes place. And because erosion takes place, and I'm not just talking about in a building, I'm not talking about material, but even relationships. If we're not careful, if we're not taking care of it over time, erosion becomes the issue. It becomes the problem. And I will say that as we came to the close of our tenure, as a matter of fact, I took over Love Tabernacle, and before it was Love City, I took over Love City Church 2013. As that was happening about a year or so prior to, something had transpired in the building. And anybody who knows us knows that we've invested in that building. I won't say that we maintained, we've invested in that building to the tune of, we know for sure, well over six figures. We're not going to get into the numbers, but I understand that it looked good it didn't look like it looked when we came in. And there's some work that was done, no questions. Anybody who came knew, even from the other side, knew that we've done work, immaculate work, stupendous work. We committed to it, not just the investing, but the maintenance of the building. And I say that in no way, shape, or form to throw shade. I say that because I know what it is to be a steward of somebody else's stuff. That is where I'm coming from. I know what it is to serve someone else, take care of someone else's stoop, to shovel, to sweep, to plunge, to clean. I know what it's like to vacuum. I know what it is to stuff plastic in the windows. I know what it is to chase crackheads off the property. I know what it is to run upstairs, and I know what it is to make sure that we secure the building enough. I know what it's like to walk the roof, to make sure that there's no junk in the gutters. When it comes down to being a steward over somebody else's stuff, one thing I know how to do is I know how to steward well. And when we came to that point, about right around the transition from my father to myself, something special happened, y'all. And that thing that was special to me that transpired was I was able to look at where I was and hurt because of where I was. I was hurting, and I told my wife, I said, I heard the Lord specifically say something to me that scares me. And here we are, beloved, again. We moved out of the building. We moved away. We left that building, that situation, no longer our situation. But years ago, again, before the name change, before we became Love City Church, the Spirit of the Lord said to me, right on Thomas S. Boylan Street and Blake Avenue, the Spirit of the Lord said to me, how committed are you to the brick and the mortar of this building? And that was the word of the Lord to me that day. And I was like, it's brick and mortar, whatever you say, Lord, whatever you say, Lord. And I found myself from that day until May 31st, 2020, wrestling with that question that the Lord had for me. How committed are you to the brick and the mortar of that building? The reason why I'm sharing this in this moment with you all is because there are some things that God asks you and you have the answer for, but that answer is not the answer. I'm gonna start there. When it was time for us to move, the Lord had prepared me almost a decade ago for the transition, for the move from that building. But I had wrestled with God for 8 years. 8 years. More than 8 years, actually, because I was not committed to the answer that I gave God. Can I pause here and ask you, how many of us are stuck in terrible situations because we were not prepared for the answer that we gave God, that we said yes at the altar, but when we walked away from the altar, we knew that there was a no yet in our heart? How many of you have, as leaders, said to your people, I will, knowing that you will not? And because of that, there is always a constant tugging and a pushing and a pulling. I mean, since that time when I told the Lord, it ain't no problem for me, I had people come in and do more work. We had folks come in up until the year 2019. I had folks come in and repaint the entire building. Had a graffiti artist come in and work in the children's church. Had folks come in and handle some things. And what I realized in the interim was that was all me saying no to what I had told God yes to. Can I say that again? That was me saying no to what I had told God yes to. And because I had told God yes, he was still moving because of my commitment. The enemy was still moving, but my heart was stuck. And therefore, in the midst of this, I was challenged. I want to talk to a leader here. I was challenged because I was still dealing with the fact that I had not committed to fully what God was trying to show me. What God was probably trying to show me was another building. He was probably trying to show me another move. He was trying to show me some kind of progressive activity that the church could have participated in. But I had told him yes in fear of what that other side looked like, leaving where I had been. I want to challenge a leader to go back, ask God, Or go back to where you asked God for things and you told God yes, and you haven't seen progression. You may not have seen any movement. And I'm going to challenge you. I probably say 5 out of 10 times you have not seen progression. You have not seen movement because you are still wrestling with the other side of what God asks you to do. It's not that you don't think you can handle it. It's you don't know what God is asking you for because the degree of comfort. We left in this time, this idea of Exodus. I want to challenge you because there may be an exodus, not necessarily as a leader or a pastor, but you may be coming into a place of exodus as it pertains to your relationship with your spouse, or a place of exodus. And exodus doesn't necessarily mean running away; it just means coming out. And some of us have to learn that there's some times when an exodus is required, not for you to disappear, but for you to actually be seen. Some of you have been so committed to hiding for so long, you don't even know what it looks like on the other side of your come out. And I just want to challenge some of you because where I'm getting ready to go in with this is going to really force you to deal with some things. While this process was happening, and again, I was part of the founding members of my father's church back in 1996. However, by the year 2020, when I finally spoke to the board and said, I can't do this anymore, I have to go. When COVID hit, when we were asked to pay for things and we weren't there, the kind of relationship was crazy as well. But again, because of relationship beyond contract, right? When it was supposed to be covenant, you will do some crazy things just for the sake of peace. And where we were getting ready to leave, I realized that I was the last founding member of Love Tabernacle Fellowship that was fellowshipping in that building. I was the last founding member of the church. I'm going to say that again. I was the last founding member of the church. So every time there was a challenge where it meant, okay, we may have to move in another direction. We may have to use another space, not because we were leaving, just because we wanted to do something else. The only person who could say, well, I remember when, was me. I had taught my people the danger of being so committed to the past that you risk the future. I've even taught it not just as a church, but even in my personal ministry brand, that you should never be so committed to where you are that you negotiate with yourself to remain the same. Never be so afraid to change that you negotiate with yourself to remain the same. I taught my people that. I taught my mentees that. I taught the people that I trained that. And I had a problem living it out because I was quick to give God a yes without counting up the cost. He said to me, how committed was I to the brick and mortar of this place? What y'all don't know, even before I was pastoring, that there were times when the building was robbed. There were 4 actual times that the building was robbed physically. And the first time the building was robbed, whatever equipment that was there that we brought, whatever equipment that was there that belonged to the church was stolen. We replaced that equipment in a matter of days. Love Tabernacle. Within a matter of days, the building was robbed again. The security protocols and system that's in the building was a result of us being robbed. See, so the first set of equipment that was there belonged to the building, belonged to the landlord, and some of ours was taken as well. The next set we brought. The same week, that was stolen. We had borrowed someone else's. He had a set. God bless him. I pray the Lord will continue to cause his face to shine upon him. No matter how far he may stray or how close he may be with God, I pray that the bounty of the Lord be upon him. I pray that the bowels of God's goodness be fully blessing him and his family, wherever they are, whatever they do in life, because he did not have to. I think at the time we had estimated that he loaned our church $10,000 worth of equipment. Guess what, y'all? In a couple of years, all of that was stolen again. Here's why this is big for me. When that had happened, people in the church didn't even know. I was spending nights. Sometimes my parents didn't even know. I would sneak out the house, go spend nights sitting in front of the church to ensure that nobody robbed, nobody stole, nobody did anything. To the point that some of the neighbors used to say, "You should go home. We're here. We'll watch." Why was that a thing for me? You know why? Because I was that committed, going back to this point, to the brick and the mortar of the building. And if I could relay this idea of Exodus back to the biblical account of what we see with the children of Israel, that the children of Israel were also committed to the brick and the mortar of Egypt. They were committed to the brick and the mortar and the construction of Pharaoh's house. What do you do when you spend so much of your life building another man's house that the thought of building your own makes you afraid? I'm going to say that again. What do you do when you spend so much time building another man's house, filling another man's cupboard, making sure that their bills are paid, making sure that they are taken care of, that you don't know how to do it for yourself? It is only God that can break that degree of bondage and slavery. I'm going to say it again. Hope somebody heard what I just said. Only God can break and relieve us from that degree of bondage and slavery. I can confidently and boldly say, beloved, that I was stuck and committed to that house. I was stuck and committed to that building. I was stuck and committed to that program. I was stuck and committed to these people. I was stuck and committed to the legacy that was not mine, that I had no access to, that I had no promise to, that I had no name in, that I had no right to. I just thought that if you were a good person, if you were good to people, people will be good to you. They'll never forget you. And not raising the rent is not them being good to you. But that's a whole other conversation. I want you to understand that there's sometimes God will cause you to walk through an experience where you have to look at what someone else is doing. He's going to train you to do in someone else's house for the sake of you learning how you can do it on your own. I'm going to say it one more time. Every night that I sat at that building, the Lord taught me how to protect, how to do security. Every time that I sat there going through the manifest of the equipment and the things that were broken and the things were lost, the Lord was teaching me. Every contractor that came to that building, every time I sat in that place in doing counsel, every time I sat there praying, every time I sat and laid on the floor between the porch and the altar, no one knew, no one saw, but I was weeping for them anyway. I wept and I still cry for our landlord, our former landlord. I wept and I still cry for their bloodline. I wept because, and there's a reason why. Someone tells me I'm too nice, but I got to understand that love has the power to do what hate can't. I'm going to say it again. Love has the power to do what hate can't. And while I was told that I was a fool, I was advised to quit years ago. I was advised to stop paying rent. I was advised to listen. If I were to have listened to the people, I would have been out of the building a long time ago. I would have probably had a building built a long time ago as well, but I would not have had the peace that I've had over the last year. When I began to teach, after we left the building, there was a different man that was teaching. I was free. I was relieved. I had fully come out of that house that I had committed more than half of my life to. I'm going to say that. I committed more than half of my life to a building that my dad's name was not on. To a people that in turn, at the end of the day, called the cops on me. I learned my lesson, but I learned it through the lens of love, not lashback. I'm going to say it again. I learned my lesson, but I learned it through the filter of love and not lashback. I learned that I can walk away and be free and still have no animosity toward the people that I felt would have been there. There's no shade about it. No, there's no shade about it. I learned through the lessons of love, but I also learned that there can be limit. You can love and still be limited. in how much access people get to you. I'm gonna say that one more time. I don't know why I can't see anything in the chat, but you can love and still have limits on your love, not because you hate them, but because you have wisdom. Are y'all with me? Are y'all with me? I need this to hit home for some people. I need this to hit home for some people because at this time, I was in a predicament and a situation where I had no ability. The lease was not in our name. None of the utilities that we paid were in our name. We were not going to be repaid fully for all the work we did in the building. We knew it before my father left, but I still was there serving. And this is me recalling our escape. The reason why I want to push this home for a lot of you on this Memorial Day is because I had built a monument on something that I should have just memorialized. That I had desired and built something almost, it wasn't even an altar. No, it wasn't an altar. I just had committed my life to that. We went into that building I went into that building as a teenager. I went into that building literally preaching in high school. I went into that building, when it comes down to certain things, innocent. So my church, my father, I would always tell people, while it seemed like a Pentecostal community that I had come out of, I was raised word of faith. So certain things didn't connect with me, but I had the flow. So the idea of apostolic and Pentecostal, it was there. Holiness was there. I had it. I had the DNA, but I wasn't trained that way. So when I walked in and I saw certain things, I experienced certain things, I didn't allow myself to go too far, but at the same time, something was pulling me. And as I connected to this place, it became a monument to me because it connected me to the side of me that I didn't know was there. My father I have yet to hear my father hack one time when he preached a sermon, ever. My father's not a hooper, doesn't holler, neither does my little brother. Now, we may get a little strong in the tone, but I was the closest, as far as I know, to that perspective. Here's why this is a big deal, y'all. Because as I was going through all of this, through this place, through this experience, I began to learn something that really blessed me, and I hope it blesses you. That people who are committed to what people do will always struggle receiving what the Holy Spirit wants to do. I'm going to say it again. People who are committed to what people do, whether it be offense or they become fans, will always struggle with what the Holy Spirit desires to do in their life. If you're not careful, you will allow people to cause you to miss the move of God. If you're not careful, you will miss another infilling. If you're not careful, you will reject the purpose of God because of the commitment to a place. And I taught this, and I taught it a few years ago about the law of place and the power of going to the place where you can fully become who God has called you to be. You've got to learn, listen to me, beloved, that when God pulls you to a place, he's not just going to give you the people, he's going to give you the power. And why does this matter as I talk about my recollection of our extraction and our exodus? Watch this. Because even after we left the place, the power remained. Can I say that? Even after we left the place, the power was still there. As a matter of fact, y'all, when we decided to leave the building, we actually stopped. And my church folk who's on here can tell you, When we left that building, that day, I knew we were going to have the board meeting. That day, I had a prayer meeting set up outside of the building. My church folks will tell you, without anybody's pressing me. I didn't do it for a show, so that we can thank God for the quarter of a decade that we had been in that building. The quarter of a century, rather. The quarter of a century that we had been in that building. We gathered together in front of the building. I didn't care about nobody else. I didn't care about what the neighbors were going to say. We didn't bring all our chairs and stuff had been gone at that time. I didn't want to talk about the chairs and the equipment and all. I'm not even going to get into that. I had committed. Here's why. Because I've learned, listen to what I'm about to tell you, beloved, that your gratitude is indicative of your aptitude. Your thank you shows you how smart you are. Your thank you shows you how intelligent you are. And we had, at that time, when things were going on, it was the height of the pandemic. Folks didn't want to come outside. I said, I don't care. I'm going to be in front of this building that I began, but I didn't begin to preach there, but I had began itinerant ministry at that point from that space. Over 20 plus years, I had been preaching the love of God. Over 20 plus years, I've cast devils out of that building. I had demons come back to tell me about when they were cast out in that building. I watched God open blind eyes. I watched hands be healed. There's a baby right now all over the internet that came to us with a issue in their eyes. We laid hands on that baby, and to this day, they have yet to see what it was that they were going to give a surgery for. I have laid hands on a man who walked in bowed over in his body, stood up straight, and praised God up and down those aisles without question. And there are countless testimonies of what we've done. We've helped ministries be launched out of that place. We help entrepreneurs be launched out of that place. I'm grateful, y'all, that because the Lord reminded me that the place is not my place. That if I'm going to be who I am an apostle of the Lord Jesus Christ, whether I'm in Brooklyn or Burundi. Nobody gonna stop that. I had to learn it. See, I got so committed to the brick and the mortar that I actually limited my ascension gift. Now I'm covering leaders around the world. Within a year, they found me. See, the challenge, beloved, is this. Can you trust the power of God in the place that you are in, no matter what it looks like? I'm going to say it again. Can you trust the power no matter the place? Because if you can trust the power outside of the place, then it is guaranteed that the power is going to overcome the place. As a matter of fact, your power will exude in the place. So I can walk into the DA's office, I can stand in the presence of senators and governors, and still then ask me who I am. Not because they want to be nice and good PRO. There's something that matters. There's something that exudes when you know who you are, no matter the place you're in. And I can preach this. I can preach this on Fifth Avenue in New York City, and I can preach this in the slums of Kinshasa, Congo, because I know that it's true. Listen to this. I know it to be true. Real quick, the book of Mark says something that I want to just leave in your hearing real quick. And I'm not going to go through the whole thing. The book of Mark, chapter 11, verse 22, the A portion says this: have faith in God. Now, I told you I came by a word of faith, all right? Have faith in God. And it is believed that properly translated, this means, it says, have the God kind of faith. I'm talking about the placement and the power. Have the God kind of faith. When you go into any situation, any circumstance. Your nerves may want to take you out of here. But if you have the kind of faith that God has, I'm saying that again, have the God kind of faith, or have the faith that God has. You don't go in hoping for the outcome. You go in understanding that there is a finished reality. Beloved, when we were in that building from 1997 up until the year 2020, I mean, we served food. We would serve food to the community all the time. We would have dinners and all of that. One of my passions were so that people who are less fortunate can sit down and have multiple course hot meals served to them on real china. And my church will tell you, we did that several times. They would come in, we would have them served. Our people would be their waiters and waitresses. They would bring their food to them. They would pour their drink. They would clean the table, and then we would bless them on the way out the door. I've done that for years. However, what I did not do, I'm not the biggest fan of pantry ministry, not because it's a bad thing, not because I don't like feeding the community. That's not my thing. And I know that's not my thing because I struggle with the idea of just feeding people and not having a way to follow up with them, to be a blessing to them with the word as well. Call that my evangelistic thrust, my apostolic edge. That's just something that sits with me. And in the midst of the pandemic, there were questions and things that were going back and forth about food pantry and serving food. I said, nah, that ain't my thing. Here's where I hope it blesses you. When I committed to leaving the building, listen to what I'm about to tell you. I had no plan to serve food to the community. None. If people needed, we would provide. There were folks who came to the building who said, during the pandemic, who would leave notes for us. I would go grocery shopping, drop it off. Some I would tell the church about, some I wouldn't. If they needed a loaf of bread, I'm not going to call the church for that. But what I did was, I said, all right, well, this is an opportunity here. I understand that the love of God. One question that we have thank God for our consultant who's in the ministry. We have an actual consultant who is a member or a citizen of Love City, and they said, what does love look like when y'all can't hug each other? Because I actually went into a major, still not out, depressive state because my ministry is loving people, hugging people, giving bear hugs, putting my arms around their neck, pulling them in, letting them experience the love of God, heart to heart and breast to breast. I love that thing. So for the world to tell me I can't go outside and hug people, I struggled. I didn't do well. The opportunity came where they said, hey, how would you like, I got food. I want to serve some meals. I'm like, I don't have it. I don't have a way to feed. Matter of fact, I left the building. So, whatever it is, it is. The opportunity came while we were in the building. I said no if I'm not in charge, simply because I've had bad experiences trying to do things with people who want to be in charge where our stuff is concerned. I just don't like it. Not a control freak. I just don't like it after having been just abused by people. Here's where it gets gooder, y'all. At that time, the person said, I can give you about 200 or 300 meals. I'm like, what am I going to do with this? I don't know what to do with 300 meals. So spoke to our head of outreach. She said, this is what we're going to do. We did not have a building. Got to the point, y'all, again, I'm talking about when you have the power of God and you know what your place is, and your place is not committed to an actual address, the power of God is going to be present. That we got so many meals, we actually had to get a conglomerate of churches and organizations to partner with us so we can give food away. Without a building, I spent as a leader of Love City Church, spent no money to get this thing done. Guess what? Within a matter of, I want to say days, the first couple hundred went out. Within a year, this is a year today since we left the building. We are up, I know we've probably hit over 80,000 meals served without a refrigerator, without a stove, without a building. No, listen to what I'm telling you. Nobody knows that we don't have a building. The people who are partnering with us, we're trying to figure out where we're getting it from. We serve food from Brownsville to Bushwick, and I think one of our biggest people, one of the biggest groups that we serve is in Red Hook. We got up to about 40 plus organizations and churches that with whom we were working without a building, without anybody calling our name, without anybody asking us, without anybody saying, oh, Pastor so and so. No. Matter of fact, most of the time they don't even talk to me. Why is this important? Because I've learned through this process that you cannot afford to allow yourself to be committed only to what you knew. You've got to have the faith that God has, the faith that the end has already been established, the faith that it's already working itself out, and you've got to be in the place where you can be seen and heard and not be seen nor heard. I'm going to say it again. You've got to position yourself to be seen and heard without boasting, without being prideful, without saying your name, without talking about your history and who you know and who knows you. Never once do I walk into any one of these meetings in the community telling people that I'm so-and-so. As a matter of fact, most of the meetings I walk into, I'm introduced by someone else. You know why? Because I know who I am. And if you're meant to know who I am, the door will be open so that you would get to know who I am. At my age, I have leaders who are sitting in council with me, who are 20 and 30 years my senior, asking me, how did you get this done? Without any money, without a building. I'll tell you why. Because for some reason, I'm going to set somebody free right now. For some reason, leaders in our city have been committed to the idea that you need to have the building to do church work. If COVID ain't teach nobody nothing, COVID should have taught you leaders, that the building is not what's going to keep you. It's what you've built that will keep you. I'm going to say it again. And it's not the building that's going to keep you. It's what you built by God's grace. Unless he builds it, they labor in vain that build it. So unless you have his stamp of approval on your blueprints, don't matter how big your building is, no matter how much money you get, no matter how many names you call, no matter how many businesses you set up, no matter how many CDCs you work. And let this be a fair warning to the men and women of God who have been using and utilizing these SBA and PPP loans and grants to support their habit. Both God and the IRS are watching. The hour will come when it will be exposed and your books will not balance. And what you built will be made out to be worse than if you had just gone through the process. One of the things I appreciate about being raised around men and women of God of old, the seasoned saints, is I learned how to wait my turn. Take the building, take the name. One thing you cannot stop is an idea whose time has come. And I don't even think my time has come. I don't think Love City's time has come, but I honestly believe that there is a degree of favor that is blowing upon our ministry. And I'm doing my best, listen to me, to get out of the way of the favor of God. Not because I'm afraid, but because I know favor don't just come for me. Favor has friends, and those who were able to rock with us through the process, those who prayed with us through the process, those who heard and did not gossip. God bless you. May the favor that rests upon me come upon you speedily and aggressively is a blessing I command in Jesus' name. If I can tell you how many people call me and told me what they were hearing on the streets, if I can tell you how many people mentioned about what had gone on, and I said, who told you that? Where did you hear that from? What is going on here? If I can tell you how many names how many rooms my name was mentioned in over this transition, and near one of them called me to confirm nor deny. I'm grateful that I was raised by a generation who taught me that going to God in prayer is better than standing in the street and fighting. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm a fighter. I'm going to tell you now, I'm a fighter. My Brownsville comes up quick. Before I was Brownsville, I was Crown Heights. During the riots, my fighter comes up quick. What I've learned in this process is there are some things that if you fight for, you release faster. If you begin to fight for it, you'll lose it faster. So I just had to let that go. Before I come to the close, I just again thank you for sitting with me. Those of you who could, I want to share this real quick. The whole idea of the Exodus. Those of you know I'm a community preacher. I love what's going on in the community. I love building community. I believe true kingdom is not church unless the church is spread out into areas that are beyond the actual church, into industry that are beyond the actual church. You may say it's the Seven Mountain System, and we actually ascribe to that as well. We believe that is a kingdom idea. It may not be kingdom in terms of biblical language, but it's a kingdom idea. But I ascribe to this because I believe the story of the Exodus was God's attempt to bring a people to see that no matter how powerful the current political, social, and economic system might be, if his people who would humble themselves, come together, allow him to bring them out, he will establish a God-centric political, social, and economic society. I believe that we should not have only Christian lawyers or just the people, Christian legal assistants or legal aids. We should have lawyers who have legal companies who are not going into court preaching John 3:16, but they are proving the word of God by how they deal with those who are sick and those who are incarcerated, those who may have been abused by the system. The Lord tells Moses to tell Pharaoh, say, let my people go so they can serve me. In chapter 3, he tells them, I've seen the affliction of my people. And what I have learned as I sit back here now in 2021, looking back at what we have come through in 2020, I began to see the affliction of God's people by us being in that building. I'm going to say that again. I began to see the affliction of Love Tabernacle and Love City Church by being in that building. I saw economic affliction in that we poured money into a building that we had no name on. And again, there were different reasons for that. But there was a financial affliction. I'll tell you why. Every building save one that we walked through in this community, every single building that we walked through, except for one that we had been to in this entire community, has been snatched up, and many of them by churches. The money we invested in saving a building that was not ours could have been the down payment for a building that we would have probably paid off already, because the building, the real estate market was totally different then. Listen to what I'm telling you. Every building except for one has been snatched up, and most of them are now churches. We had the vision, but because we were committed to an old place, listen to me, the beloved. I say this with full confidence. We were committed to a place that was not our own, in hopes that they would be kind enough to yield at some point. I've been through, listen to what I'm about to tell you, 3 generations of landlords in that building, me. Over a quarter of a century, 3 generations of landlords. 5 people, but 3 generations of landlords. And still, we didn't have a space. We didn't have a building. We didn't have anything for ourselves. I saw the economic oppression of our people sitting back over the last year. Over the last year, if I can encourage you, and if you would like to sow into Love City Church, feel free to. You want to sow into NRS Ministry, feel free to. Over the last year, what we've lost in that building in 25 years, listen to what I'm about to tell you, beloved. What we lost in 25 years, in the last 2 years, we put it together. We put a third of that together. And I told you we spent well over 6 figures. Over the last 2 years, COVID era included, we were able to put a third of what we invested in almost 30 years into. There was an economic oppression, I believe, in being in that building. I believe that we suffered a social oppression in that building. The building had different kinds of branding on it, and I believe that folks, and we couldn't brand how we wanted to outside of the building, and I believe that folks walked by our building, looked by our building. One of the reasons why we changed our name from Love Tabernacle Fellowship International or Love Tabernacle International Fellowship to Love City Church, other than the Lord causing us to go in that direction, is that there was another famous church. There's another popular church, I don't say famous, another popular church in Brooklyn with a similar name, that has a very popular bishop now. And because of that, folks who are trying to find us many times will go to their church and stay. Now, is that to say that the Lord didn't have it for them? Yes, but from a leadership perspective, I learned, hey, this is too close. We got to restructure. Being in that building changed some things. We stunted our growth in many ways. And I believe that over the last year, I've been hearing God. This is how my people were oppressed. I talked about the financial. I talked about social. And here's one of the key things that I believe that stunted our growth. I need you to hear this. And I'm done. I got my last 4 minutes. Thank you for those of you who stay with me. There was a manifestation of prejudice that was birthed out of that building where my people were concerned. And I'll tell you what that means. The Father had allowed us to only, hear me, want to do ministry with people who were below a particular socioeconomic standard. In other words, we only wanted to minister to the impoverished. What? Preacher, what you say? That we began to prejudge people who did well as though they didn't need the same power, didn't need the same message, they didn't need the same level of word. Over the last few years, the Lord began to tell me, elevate your preach beyond preaching for the broken people in the hood. My standard of ministry had to change. My standard of homily had to change. I had to restructure how I presented the gospel of Jesus Christ, not just pounding them as they would want a good Baptist preach or a good Pentecostal too. I had to now rework my presentation, take it beyond what we know as hood preaching. Known from the hood. The Father had to challenge me to say, now, if you're going to minister to where this place is going, begin to minister to people who are going to be moving in. So I began to preach as though lawyers went to the church. I began to preach as though doctors were coming to Bible study. I began to preach as though I was going to sit and teach engineers and still minister to those who are marginalized because of their financial status. Why? Because I had to break the prejudice and the mindset that the church is only supposed to be preaching to poor Black people. I had to change that mindset. And this is one of the reasons why the Lord began to show me over the last year why you struggled with pantry ministry. He said, because you struggle with the idea that the church was only supposed to feed the poor. Yes, you're supposed to feed the poor. Yes, you're supposed to take care of the widow, but every widow is not poor. Every person in jail is not poor. Every person who's sick is not lacking. Why are you going to cater your message to a people people who may not be able to connect with your messages because you prejudge them for their place in society. Oh, yeah. That's where the Lord brought me. That's where the Lord taught me. And it's teaching me that my journey had to shift from just judging those who did well or prejudging those who did well. So my conversations had to change. The word of God began to resonate with me differently as the Lord showed me. Jesus didn't just hang out with the poor people. He wasn't just feeding the hungry all the time. He had entrepreneurs that worked with him, that walked with him, that could afford to leave their businesses. He preached to people who were well off enough, who could leave their entire family for 3.5 years and not worry about a bill. Who in the world have I been preaching to? The Lord began to restructure my paradigm of what ministry looked like, even in the hood. Now here I am, watch this. Though Brownsville is the lowest income earning community in Brooklyn, maybe even the city, we have now we've begun to welcome people who are moving out of Park Slope, who is the highest earning community in Brooklyn. Brownsville, 28,000. Park Slope, 128,000. The Lord is closing the gap by bringing people into our community. I can't just preach, teach, minister to, and prophesy to the poor. My prophetic had to switch. How can I prophesy cars to people who are moving into our community with $80,000 and $90,000 cars? I'm gonna help y'all before I die. The prophetic word now had to be sourced by a God who was bigger than their W-2s. I serve a God who is bigger than a man's W-2. I don't care how much he makes. There's a word of the Lord for them. Therefore, beloved, I want to challenge you in this. I'm challenging you in this. I just wanted to share some of my journey. I didn't even get into my notes, really. I wanted to just push these points home. I hope I encouraged a leader. I hope I encouraged some assistant pastors. I hope I spoke to some folks. All of this in the meantime, I was yet going in and out of school, trying to figure out the majors, got a degree and certified in education, studying architecture at the time, had moved into that field. Now I've walked out of that. Even in all of that, I was stunted in my growth because I was so committed to the building. I couldn't be committed to education. But glory be to God. I believe I secured my bachelor in theology. I'm working on a business degree now. Here's why: because I have been freed from the old place. If I can encourage somebody, you know that you've been delivered when you begin to pick up speed. The children of Israel, hear what I'm about to tell you. The children of Israel, as many of them had left Egypt, they knew that if they didn't know that they were delivered, they could tell by the pace of their deliverance, the pace of their movement from one place to the next, that God was with them. I want to encourage somebody right now. You may be feeling like you're stuck in a place. Number one, go back and check how real your yes was. Because I gave God a yes, that was a yes, but it was actually a no, or I'm thinking about it. And he brought that back to my remembrance over the last year. I also was able to stand up and say, I am free from what I had sown into. I was able to cut my losses and walk away. You cannot, and I'm going to say this, you cannot walk into the freedom that God has for you if you are not willing to walk away from what you had sown into. People, places, and things included. It may sound crazy, but I want to encourage you, you can begin again. I have. Love City Church is doing better than I had anticipated, and I'm thankful. I'm thankful for the team. I'm thankful for our people. We are totally virtual right now, and I am excited about it because starting this week, praise be to God. Starting this week, we are looking for a new place. I'm so thankful that even while churches were falling apart and during COVID, and we still can't go into a storefront. We're still too big for a storefront. We're even if you take away the 6 foot restriction, we're still too big for a storefront. That is the kind of problem I want every leader who is on this live, who's watching this stream to have. That even when you quit, that God is blessing you so much that you still don't have room to receive. May the Lord add continually as you say yes to a new place and a new season. Glory be to God. I don't say that to throw off on anybody. I'm saying that because I've committed to this work for a long time. And now the Lord is really pushing me back into itinerant ministry, back into apostolic work, but I refuse to leave the church in a place that cannot handle what God is doing. So I'm building the preachers. Slowly but surely, I'm building team. Leadership is being restructured. I'm thankful for it all because it taught me. My exodus taught me quite a bit. That being said, I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. Again, someone hit me up and said, how do I sow? If you desire to sow, you feel free to sow. If you want to sow to NRS Ministries, you can do that by way of Cash App, NRS Ministries. You just Cash App, $ NRS Ministries. If you want to be a blessing to myself, if you want to be a blessing to Love City Church as well, you can sow by way of Zelle, or you can go to Bless You. My sister is on, Pastor Olakanoa. I thank God for you. Bit.ly, I'm going to throw that in there, /LoveCityGive. All right, bit.ly. Y'all help me. I don't got the team today. Love City Give. Hope I encourage somebody. Hope I bless somebody. That being said, I want to be able to do this with some leaders another time. I want to begin to build leaders. I did a lot of financial training and teaching before we left. And I knew the Lord said that 2020 was the year that the world was going to be on sale again. But I did some training. And guess what, y'all? Even in our transition out of the building, so many of my people moved and got houses and got condos and got cars. I love it. I love the fact that the freedom of God came when I walked away from Pharaoh's house. Woo! I love the fact that financial freedom came when I left Pharaoh's house. That being said, beloved, I pray, hallelujah, I pray that the Lord bless you. Again, somebody just text me. I didn't put in my Cash App. So Cash App is $. I'm sorry, y'all, I don't do this well. All right? Or you can inbox me and I'll get it to you. That's fine. All right? That being said, I love you. I appreciate you. Meet me again in our virtual sanctuary down here. We're not on Amboy Street anymore, but I still got my foot all over the hood. I got my foot all over the neck of the devil in the hood too. As a matter of fact, I think we've got more connections now that we left the building than when we were in the building. So again, I love you. Love City Church. You're the best church in the entire world. I appreciate you for rocking out with me. I pray the Lord blesses you all really, really, really well. Those of you who are watching, those of you who committed, Stacy, I appreciate you. Kalila, I appreciate you. Natalie, I appreciate you. John, bless you. Pastor James Willis, bless you. I pray this word encourage you. Charity, bless you. Stacy, Kevin, woo! I pray the Lord blesses you. I pray the Lord encourages you. Don't be afraid to exit your Egypt, because according to the word of God, he is going to free you to bring you to a whole nother dimension of increase. If you have committed and you said you gave him a real yes. All right. I love you. There's nothing you can do about it. I appreciate you. And I can't wait to talk to you again real soon. I hope to do some more of these lives because they really are a blessing. And if you're a leader on here and you want to learn about community ministry, just matter of fact, inbox me, hit me up. I'll begin to talk to you about how you can do community ministry the way I've done it, from the police department to local political powers and leaders. I can walk you through that. This is what I do. I do it with other leaders for a fee, but I can probably rework some of my stuff for a live so that you can get this, and the Lord will be a blessing to you. I appreciate y'all. I appreciate y'all. And I pray the Lord blesses you all tremendously as well. Listen, the power of God lives in you. We believe at Love City Church that if Jesus lives in you and he's the greater one, then you are a mega. So I'm going to pronounce the same blessing that I pronounce on my church on those of you who are watching this live. You are a mega people, serving a mega God, doing mega things in mega places. I'm going to say that one more again. You are a mega people serving a mega God, doing mega things in mega places. NRS Ministries, our desire is to feed your now and to fuel your next. I hope that after this, you're walking away full. I talk to you guys real soon. Peace. Love you. Bye bye.